Welcome to Stories Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Weldin. Today's story is Winnie the Pooh and Rabbit's Burrow, written by A. Milne and adapted for audio by Daniel Hinds. Thanks! Enjoy the episode! Winnie the Pooh and Rabbit's Burrow. Edward Bear, known to his friends as Winnie the Pooh, or Pooh Bear for short, was walking through the forest one day, singing proudly to himself. He had made up a little song that very morning as he was doing his exercises in front of the glass. These exercises included rubbing his stomach, lifting his favorite honey pots, taking the occasional taste, and waving away imaginary bees, just for practice. He went tra-la-la-la-la as he stretched up as high as he could go, and then tra-la-la-la-loo as he tried to reach his toes. After breakfast, he had said it over and over to himself until he had learnt it by heart. And now he was singing it right through as he walked happily along in the forest. Tra-la-la-la-la, I'm a stout old bear. Tra-la-la-la-loo, honeybees beware. Rum-tum-tum-tum-tum, I'm a strong old bear. Rum-tum-tum-tum too. Well, he was singing this song to himself and walking along gaily, wondering what everybody else was doing and what it felt like being somebody else, when suddenly he came to a sandy bank, and in the bank was a large hole. Not a dark and nasty hole, but a warm and soft and tidy one. "Aha!" said Pooh. Tra-la-la-la-la. If I know anything about anything, that hole means rabbit, he said. And rabbit means company, he said. And company means food and listening to me singing and such like. Rum-tum-tum-tum-tum. So he bent down, put his head into the hole, and called out, "Hello? Is there anybody at home?" There was a sudden scuffling noise from inside the hole, a quiet muttering, and then silence. Pooh wrinkled up his face in thought and then called out again, this time very loudly. "What I said was, is anybody at home?" "No," said a voice, which then added, "And besides, you needn't shout so loud. I heard you quite well the first time, thank you very much." "Oh, bother," said Pooh. "Isn't there anybody here at all?" "There's nobody here. Now please go away." Winnie the Pooh took his head out of the hole and thought for a little. One stout round hand on his stout round chin. He thought and he thought, and he thought to himself, "Aha! There must be somebody here because somebody must have said nobody." So he put his head back in the hole and said, "Hello down there. Rabbit, is that you?" "No," said Rabbit in a different sort of voice this time, trying to trick old Pooh. But wasn't that Rabbit's voice? "I don't think so," said Rabbit. "At least it isn't supposed to be." "Oh," said Pooh. He took his head out of the hole and had another think, and then he put it back and said, "Well, could you very kindly tell me where Rabbit is?" "He has gone to see his friend Pooh Bear, who is a great friend of his." "Okay, then," said Pooh. And then he turned around. "Wait a second," he said, spinning back to the hole, very much surprised. "But this is me." "What sort of me?" came the voice from the hole, very suspiciously. "Pooh Bear." "Are you sure?" said Rabbit, still more surprised. Quite sure," said Pooh. "Oh, well then come in." So Pooh pushed and pushed and pushed his way through the hole and into the burrow. It was a tight fit, but at last Pooh Bear squeezed himself in. "You were quite right," said Rabbit, looking at him all over. "You are Pooh. Glad to see ya." "Who did you think it was?" asked Pooh, brushing the sand from his yellow fur. "Well, I wasn't sure. You know how it is in the forest. One can't have just anybody coming into one's house. One has to be careful. But it's good to see you, Pooh Bear. How about a mouthful of something sweet?" Pooh always liked a little something to eat at 11 o'clock in the morning, or at any time, really. He was very glad to see Rabbit getting out the plates and mugs, and when Rabbit said, "Honey or condensed milk with your bread?" he was so excited that he said, "Both." And then, so as not to seem quite so greedy, he added, "But don't bother about the bread, please." And for a long time after that, he said nothing. He simply ate and ate with both paws. This went on until at last, humming to himself in a rather sticky voice, he got up, shook Rabbit lovingly by the paw, and said that he must be going. "Must you?" said Rabbit politely, clearly relieved the bear was leaving before he ran out of food altogether. "Well," said Pooh, "I could stay a little longer if you—" And he tried very hard to look in the direction of the kitchen. "As a matter of fact," said Rabbit quite quickly, "I was going out myself directly." "Oh, well then, I'll be going on too," said Pooh Bear. "Goodbye." "Well, goodbye, if you're sure you won't have any more," said Rabbit, just to be polite. "Is there any more?" asked Pooh, licking his sticky lips. Rabbit took the covers off the dishes, showing them empty, and said, "No, there isn't." "I thought not," said Pooh, nodding sadly to himself. "Well then, I suppose it's goodbye. I must be going on." So he started to climb out of the hole that was the doorway to the burrow. He pulled with his front paws and pushed with his back paws, and in a little while his nose was out in the open again. And then his ears, and then his front paws, and then his shoulders, and then... When Pooh's big belly, all stuffed with honey and milk, got to the hole, he found himself quite and completely stuck. "Oh, bother," said Pooh. "I'd better go back." He tried to back up, but he was wedged too tightly. "Oh, bother," said Pooh. "I shall have to go on." He tried to pull himself out again, but still, his belly was nestled firmly in place. "I can't do either," said Pooh. "Oh, help and bother." Now, by this time, Rabbit wanted to go for a walk too, and finding the front door full of bear bottom, he went out the back door and came round to Pooh. The bear's head and shoulders and soft round paws were sticking out of the hole and into the air. "Hello," said Rabbit. "Are you stuck?" he asked. "Oh, no," said Pooh carelessly. "Just resting and thinking and humming to myself." "Well, I can see you're at least a little stuck," said Rabbit. "Here, give us a paw." Pooh Bear stretched out a paw, and Rabbit took a hold and pulled and pulled and pulled. "Ow!" cried Pooh. "You're hurting me." "The fact is," said Rabbit, "you're stuck." "Well, it all comes," said Pooh crossly, "of not having a big enough front door." "It all comes," said Rabbit sternly, "of trying to fit into places where you cannot actually fit." "You think?" asked Pooh. "I do think so," said Rabbit. "One should always consider whether a door is the right size before trying to fit through it." "Oh," said Pooh. "Then I suppose I will have to remember for next time." "Yes, you will," said Rabbit. "Just wait a moment now. I shall go and fetch Christopher Robin." Christopher Robin lived at the other end of the forest, and when he came back with Rabbit and saw the front half of Pooh, he said, "Silly old bear," in such a loving voice that everybody felt quite hopeful again. "I was just beginning to think," said Pooh Bear, sniffing slightly, "that Rabbit might never be able to use his front door again. And I would hate that," he said. "So would I," said Rabbit. "Use his front door again?" said Christopher Robin. "Of course he'll use his front door again." "Good," said Rabbit. "If we can't pull you out, Pooh, we might push you back in." Rabbit scratched his whiskers thoughtfully and pointed out that when once Pooh was pushed back, he was back. And of course nobody was more glad to see Pooh than he was. Still, there it was. Some lived in trees and some lived underground, and Pooh Bears didn't live in burrows. "You mean I'd never get out?" said Pooh. "I mean," said Rabbit, That having got so far, it seems a pity to waste all your hard work." Christopher Robin nodded. "Then there's only one thing to be done," he said. "We shall have to wait for you to shrink a little." "How long does shrinking take?" asked Pooh anxiously. "How much honey did you eat today?" the boy asked. "All of it," Rabbit said, and Pooh nodded happily, remembering all the sweet honey and good cool milk. "Well then," said Christopher Robin, "about a week, I should think." "But I can't stay here for a week." "You can stay here all right, silly old bear. It's getting you out that's the problem." "We'll read to you," said Rabbit cheerfully. "And I hope it won't snow," he added. "And I say, old fellow, you're taking up a good deal of room in my house. Do you mind if I use your back legs and rump as a table? Because, there they are, doing nothing, and it would be very convenient to just have a place to set my tea." "Oh, that's fine. But a week," said Pooh gloomily. "What about meals?" "Probably not so many meals," said Christopher Robin, "because we need to get you unstuck on the double. But we will read to you." Pooh Bear began to sigh, and then found he couldn't because he was so tightly stuck, and he sniffed as he said, "Then would you read a cookbook, such as would help and comfort a hungry and stuck bear in his great tightness?" "Of course we will," said Christopher Robin. So for a week, Christopher Robin read that sort of book to the north end of Pooh, and Rabbit set his cups and a doily and even a lamp on the south end. And in between, the bear felt himself shrinking little by little. And at the end of the week, Christopher Robin said, "Are you ready now?" Pooh wiggled, but still found himself stuck fast. "I should think so, but I might still need just a bit of help from my friends." "Of course," said Christopher Robin. He took hold of Pooh's front paws, and Rabbit took hold of Christopher Robin. And all of Rabbit's friends and relations took hold of Rabbit, and they all pulled together. "1, 2, 3, they called. They pulled and pulled and pulled, and for a long time, Pooh only said, "Ow!" and "Oof!" and "Oh!" And then, all of a sudden, he went pop, just as if a cork were coming out of a bottle. And Christopher Robin and Rabbit and all of Rabbit's friends and relations went head over heels backwards, and on top of them came Winnie the Pooh, free at last. "We did it," said Rabbit. "Finally, you're free," said Christopher Robin. "Finally, I can eat again," said Pooh Bear. "Say, Rabbit, can I come in for some honey?" "Pooh, no," laughed Christopher Robin. "We just got you out." "Oh, that's right," said Pooh. "I guess I should be going then." And so, with a nod of thanks to his friends, he went on with his walk through the forest, humming proudly to himself. But Christopher Robin looked after him lovingly and said to himself, "Silly old bear, I'm glad he's free." "Me too," said Rabbit. "I will miss that table, though. It made a lovely spot for my tea." Christopher Robin laughed, and they all went home, happy and safe. The end. Thanks for listening.